Welcome back to the big issue discussing COVID, and we're entering the phase of vaccines. And you can also join us with your thoughts. As you heard, I read a couple of messages. 055-058-5832, 055-058-5832. You can also be heard on the big issue. If you prefer Twitter, at Citi973, the hashtag is the big issue. Hashtag the big issue. We're also streaming live on Facebook. And we also suggest you go to our YouTube page and you can like our channel, Citi Tube, CITI Tube. You can like our channel and you can catch up with all our programs there. Okay, now everybody's asking about the vaccines and what it means, how we are going to get the vaccines and whatnot. But there's a story I want to read to start with Dr. John Amuasi and Dr. Okoe on this particular one. So, Dr. Amuasi, if you are there, just listen to this one quickly for me. And this is coming from, this is a story and quotes attributed to Dr. Celine Gunda. She's a member of the U.S. Transition COVID Advisory Board, and basically warning about the highly transmissible new COVID variants and vaccine resistance. Now, quote, she's saying that they are more virulent, can cause more death, and some of them may even escape the immune response, whether it's natural or from the vaccine. So it's important right now that we do everything possible to preserve vaccines to make sure they keep working, and that means preventing the spread of the new variants. Now, according to the CDC, these highly transmissible variants could prolong the pandemic and potentially create another surge. Projections out of the CDC even predict the UK variant to be the dominant variant in the US by March. So I'm just citing that as an example on how people are looking at this new UK variant and the damage that it is doing. I'm coming to you now, Dr. Amuasi. How prepared are we, from your perspective, to receive these vaccines and put them out there?
No, thanks for your question. And I like the preamble you gave. It's something that I was going to touch on, but I'm glad that you have raised the issue directly. To explain what I'm talking about, I just need to take a little step back and speak again to the issue of the data that we have, because it feeds very well into our discussion around the vaccines and how we choose to deploy them. Prof. Abekah-Nkrumah made very important points, which also Dr. Okoe made, regarding the data that we have in our country and how we're using it to inform our decisions. Dr. Abekah-Nkrumah also made mention of how our data is really not that bad if you situate it within the context of Africa. And this is absolutely true. I mean, I happen to have access to some privileged information regarding the spread of the disease in Africa and globally as well. And you do see really how in Africa, apart from maybe South Africa and a few others, Ghana really is at the top when it comes to the gathering of data and the release of this data. What I want to emphasize unequivocally is that this is insufficient. We need to be doing more if we want to win this fight in this country. The reason is, and I'll give that example again, we have put on glasses or spectacles for that matter to improve our vision. It's when you have an improved vision, you're able to move in the right direction and move quickly. The more clearly you can see, the better you can walk, the quicker and the more confidently you can walk. We've put on glasses. These glasses are allowing us to move, but not as quickly as we need to if we want to outpace this virus. And if you're not moving quickly enough to outpace the virus, then how quickly you move is of no consequence. You may have as well just sat back and done nothing. But until you move in a way that you are outpacing, then your movement becomes useful enough. And this is what I've been trying to emphasize over and over again regarding our collection of data. We're doing well, we're doing far better than others, but to really make this profitable for our decision making, we need to be doing a lot more. And I think we have the resources to do it. We just need to have a little more will. And maybe the problem is us the researchers, maybe we're not selling our capabilities or selling our capacity well enough. Ask yourself, look at what's going on with Professor Ondari's work. I mean, how many other countries in West Africa, maybe apart from Nigeria and maybe Senegal, have the capacity to do the kind of things that we're doing here? So we're definitely ahead of the curve, and we need to really accelerate, make the most out of this. Now, to the vaccine issue, it is a sobering consideration or fact that the vaccine is moving in a very dangerous direction, which could be very detrimental to our ability to get out of this pandemic. Well, those of us who are in science and research, for that matter, knew right from the beginning that it was only a matter of time when there would be variants that would be able to sidestep the vaccine. Everybody knew this from the start. We were talking about this in the research circles internationally way before even the first vaccines were put on the market. Okay, but that should not stop, vaccine research and the release of vaccines, because it is still a step forward. What is needed is research that is able to follow or go ahead of the virus, maybe even predict the possible mutations and develop vaccines that would address these mutations. Until we're able to do this and get ahead of the virus, we will always be playing catch up. Now, what is even more sobering is for us in Ghana, and for that matter in the Southern Hemisphere, or what they like to call the low middle income countries, if not the low income countries, which is we will always get the vaccines later than others, which means that we now have the UK variant with us and the South African variant. They are busy vaccinating so as to be able to get ahead of the curve. They have placed orders ahead of time for other vaccines. In fact, the UK is placing orders with BioNTech in Germany, for which they've realized their vaccine is a bit superior. I shouldn't say superior, but it's able to address the new variant a bit better. So they are placing orders in advance. They are taking a close look at the Russian, the Sinopharm, the Sputnik vaccine, which is also showing very promising activity, maybe even superior to the AstraZeneca. And so what they're doing is they're strategically placing themselves so that if one fails, they can pick another. They just started clinical trials of mixing and matching different vaccines in different people to see how this will pan out for protection. And we are the bottom end of the pipe, just receiving whatever would be available later. Hopefully, Ghana will be receiving in March about 2 to 3 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine, the much later in June, a bit more. What we need to do is to be very aggressive in our negotiation, put money on the table, put whatever we have on the table. I'll be more happy with us mortgaging our resources for vaccines than for other things like we've done in the past, but that's a different discussion. But this is critical. It's critical to our survival as a nation and our progression if we want to remain ahead of the curve. So put money on the table, invest in all the upcoming vaccine technologies, or invest in those who are producing the upcoming vaccines, so that we make some advanced commitments. Some will work well, some will not work well. It's unlikely that some will be harmful, very unlikely. But if we're able to spread ourselves, not thin, but thick enough, so that whichever works, we have a hand in all those pies, then we will come out victorious. And you can already see how the UK is instituting mandatory quarantine for anybody who's coming in from the 15th of February. What they're doing is putting in place all these subtle measures so that eventually they're going to create a nice firewall within their country where they would have the protection against the virus, including new variants, and they have a firewall so that anybody who's coming in is proofed before they're able to get in. We need to adopt a similar approach. It cannot be like the UK, but we need to find a way of getting ahead of the curve using some of the things that I've talked about. We are making a lot of effort. We're doing much, much better than others. But to really, really win and make it profitable, we need to do better.
And before I get to Dr. Okoe, I'm just going to provide some education based on the COVAX interim distribution forecast from the World Health Organization. And Dr. Okoe and Dr. Amuasi and Dr. Abekah-Nkrumah, feel free to comment on this, because when you get the information that vaccines are coming, it sounds like, once you've made the application, you will get vaccines. But it is not as straightforward as that. And that is why there are some concerns based on some of the activities that are happening in Ghana. We hear a lot of talk, but are we doing the things that are required? So, for instance, if you go to the COVAX interim distribution forecast as issued by the World Health Organization, there are two. So we have the one for AstraZeneca, the Oxford AstraZeneca, and then you have one for the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. Now, this one I'm reading, there are caveats that come with the distribution. And the one I'm going to read comes for the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine, which Ghana has been allocated. And later I'll tell you the issue also with the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. So for the caveats, it says that in order to understand the indicative distribution and future final allocation of this vaccine, it is important to consider the following. So listen carefully to this one. The actual allocation will only be announced once a product is granted the World Health Organization EUL. And this indicative distribution information does not imply or presuppose that this vaccine will be granted WHO EUL. So basically that is regarding licensing and approval. So the fact that you have been allocated, it does not mean you might get it. It still needs to be what? Sanctioned. 2, the indicative distribution takes into account current estimation of supply volumes. The supply volume may vary due to manufacturing and or operational constraints, and this will have an impact on the doses that will be allocated to countries. So we have been listed as what? 2.4 million for the Oxford AstraZeneca, but the caveat is that is not what you might actually get. That is based on, it's a projection based on manufacturing and operational constraints. It says that no doses will be allocated in the final allocation if a participant is deemed not ready, which may cause variations in the quantities allocated to the other participants. Very important, and I will explain to you why. No doses will be allocated in the final allocation if a participant is deemed not ready, which may cause variations in the quantities allocated to the other participants. And for this, I'll take you to Nigeria today, where they have been disqualified from the Pfizer vaccine. So this one is just coming through. Let me just read this. The World Health Organization-led COVAX Global Initiative has failed to shortlist Nigeria for the Pfizer vaccines following its inability to meet the standard requirement of storing the vaccines at the required 70 degrees Celsius. The Nigerian government had stated that it was expected to receive 100,000 doses through the COVAX initiative, which was set up to ensure rapid and equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines for all countries, regardless of income level. Speaking at a virtual press conference, however, the director of the World Health Organization Africa region, Dr. Mashidiso Moeti, said only 4 African countries were shortlisted for the Pfizer vaccine out of the 13 that applied. Moeti said they could not risk the Pfizer vaccines being wasted. According to her, she said around 320,000 doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine have been allocated to 4 African countries: Cape Verde, Rwanda, South Africa, and Tunisia. This vaccine has received WHO emergency use listing, but requires countries to store and distribute doses at -70 degrees Celsius. Now, the Director General of the Nigerian Institute of Medical Research, Professor Babatunde Salako, had told this newspaper that there was not enough space at the moment to store the Pfizer vaccines at the temperature. But the Executive Director of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, Dr. Faiz Al-Shaib, had described the report as fake, saying Nigeria could store the vaccines, and had taken journalists on a tour of his facility in Abuja. So what I'm saying is the government can say what it wants to say, but once the checks are done and they are not comfortable with the infrastructure you have, you will be denied. That's why I'm saying there's a big difference between talking and doing. So we need to figure out what we are doing in Ghana. So just saying, oh, we're expecting vaccines, certain things need to happen for you to actually get the vaccines. Now it says that the exact delivery after allocation will depend on the sequence of countries in the shipment plan, the time taken to place the purchase order, legal and regulatory obligations, as well as the supplier's lead time and related logistics. And finally, if during this period different products become available, this indicative distribution will need to be adjusted, as different products may be allocated to a facility participant, and therefore the quantities indicated for the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine may be altered. Dr. Koboy, what do you make of these caveats and preparation to receive vaccines from March?
Thank you very much, Godfred. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you clearly now. Thank you.
All right. So let me start by saying that we've not had studies that have conclusively established that the vaccines are resisted by the new variants. What we know is that if a virus or a disease-causing organism changes its form, it's possible that the vaccine you have developed based on the old form might not have the same efficacy that you expected. But as we speak, we've not had conclusive, established studies to show that the vaccines are not working. And by the way, remember that vaccines are made with different technologies.
Yeah.
There are vaccines that are actually developed using just a part of the organism. So we have vaccines that just, let's say, targeted the spike, the protein that is in the spike of the, let's say, the COVID virus, the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So that if that part changes, then what you have developed might fail. But the good thing is that some of these vaccines are using genetic technology. Some are using viral vectors that's using another organism which is similar to the SARS-CoV-2 to elicit response and all that. So just to say that there's no reason to lose hope on even the ability of the current studies. That's very important. Now, thirdly, let me say that Ghana is aggressively, engaging, or is aggressively engaged in different platforms to make sure that we also get a fair share of the vaccines. The COVAX facility, which is a platform by WHO, is one that we've subjected ourselves to, but we've not closed our eyes to other opportunities. I mean, we are also talking to some of the manufacturers who have emergency approval for their vaccines. There's talks with AstraZeneca. We've not shut the door on the Sputnik vaccine. We've not shut the door on the Sinopharm. So all these are, and the good thing is that we have a whole government approach. We have the Ministry of Finance together with the Ministry of Health and other, ministries, all coming together to ensure that at the end of the day, we are able to take advantage of opportunities that are available. We even have a plan of expected rollout dates for vaccines when they arrive. We are looking at targeting about 2 million people between April. We are hoping that by March ending at West, we should have had our first consignment. We are looking at targeting 2 million people between the months of April and June, and getting about 6 million vaccinated between June and September. So we've actually gone ahead to look at the population segments that will be taken care of and the numbers and all that. So we are not idle. What I take from my colleagues, which I share and I agree with them, is that the education must start aggressively so that we conscientize the population on the arrival of the vaccines. And on my own level, just last week, I sent some of my assistants to the field to try and talk to people. So I just developed a simple questionnaire to ask people whether they know about COVID-19, whether they know what vaccines are, and whether they are willing to take them. And I'm still processing the data, but you'll be amazed. The first 20, 30 documents that I looked at, almost everyone, and these are people who are educated, are saying that they will not take the vaccine. And the reason is that they've seen some videos. Some say, I'll not take it because I've seen videos that say that it's bad. Some are saying that they will not take it because they will become impotent when they take it. So that you really need to have an idea scientifically of what people are saying so that your education will be tailored. So even education must not start wholesale. The education must be surgical. so that we know who to target and the reasons to address. That government is not looking at only the COVAX platform. Government is looking at other opportunities. The Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Health, National Security. We are using a whole government approach to make sure that we lay our hands on some of these vaccines. And as for the cold chain, I'm happy to say that we are a program that runs an EPI, that's an expanded program on immunization, which requires that a country should have some appreciable level of cold chain system. I appreciate that if you take the Pfizer, that's the BioNTech, you need a very enhanced cold chain system. That is something that I wouldn't say has been completed, but at least, I mean, I'm happy to also say that Pfizer itself is now with Nigeria. I don't have the specifics, but you see, in accessing some of these vaccines, even your commitment is also important.
Yeah, that is why
sometimes
I'm reading.
You shouldn't have finished having the.
Yeah, that is why I'm saying. That is why I read the caveats, because it's easy to say the things that you are saying that the government is also saying, without actually letting the public understand that there are other things that you actually have to do. And in answering that question, you can also add this before I go to Dr. Amuasi, who wants to make an input, that it goes back to his question on the quality of data. Because, for instance, Ghana has requested for 2.4 million. If the data is not accurate and you get 2.4 and you actually need 8 million, the nature of the vaccine allocation is such that you might not get the extra 6 million that you need because your data is faulty.
Yeah, Godfred, let me say quickly that, Amuasi, Doc reminded you that apart from South Africa, we are one of the best on the continent when it comes to collection of data. In fact, we should also remember most of the cases we see on outbreak were all carried out by the Ghana Health Service, which is the operational week for government for handling this pandemic. The Akoto, international school outbreak. It was all done by some outsourced private setup surveillance team. These were supervised by the regional directorate. The outbreak we had at Tema, these were executed by the Ghana Health Service. So really, we have a team that is on the ground. We have a team that is trying to optimize the resources. And Ghana is one of the few countries that, as we speak, few countries in Africa that has a functional committee. We spoke about the committee, the subcommittee at the Ghana Health Service level. And we even have a working committee at the level of the coordinator for COVID, Dr. Abban, and Dr. Nsari, the minister, and myself in the working committee. So we have functional committees, and I'm not surprised. That's not to undermine the efforts of Nigeria, but I'm not surprised that in such reports, Ghana was not mentioned as a country not ready to subject itself. I'm not surprised. The reason is that you normally must submit reports, country reports, to show that you have the commitment and the plans in place to satisfy the cold chain requirements plus other requirements to receive the vaccines. We have such reports, and maybe the fact that we've not maybe shared with stakeholders like Dr. Nkrumah and Dr. Amuasi doesn't mean they are not in place. We have functional committees that are meeting regularly beyond submitting our forms to COVAX facility and other platforms to show that we are serious with getting and accessing the vaccines. We have all these things. So really, I will not say it's a perfect situation, but it's to mention that we are a country that has committed resources and people, committees, and all that to ensure that we put in place the infrastructure necessary to receive these vaccines. And we have a rollout plan. It is our hope, and please, all of us should understand that this is one of the few cases where demand hugely outstrips supply. And the analogy is just like having 10 children in your house, most of them malnourished because you went into a war situation. Now you are producing milk in your house. You have other families saying that give us some of the milk because our children are malnourished. And you yourself in your house, not all your kids have escaped the malnutrition. You still have some still malnourished. But I am optimistic about the world situation for two reasons. This is one of the few cases where a vaccination plan or successful vaccination of citizens, even in Europe or America, can reduce your risk way down the downstream in Africa. Because anytime the risk of spread is reduced globally or in other jurisdictions, it also affects your risk of getting the virus because it's an imported disease. although there's community spread, there's always the potential for imported, cases as well. And then the second one situation that gives me some hope is that there are over 20 vaccines that are in stage 3 trials or phase 3 trials. So the point is that because a lot of products, different vaccines would be coming on stream in the near future, these issues of shortage and trying to hoard nationalism and things would become a thing of the past in the near future when some of these 20 plus vaccines, the last time I checked, there are over 173 vaccines in phase 1, about 65 in phase 2, and phase 3 clinicals, you have over 20 products. So once the products become many, then a country can decide to hoard Pfizer or hoard, AstraZeneca or hoard the Janssen product, but you know that other products with good efficacies would also be available as well. So we have a lot of work to do. Government is bracing itself or has braced itself for this task, and we'll need the input of all these stakeholders, including Dr. Amuasi and other partners.
Dr. Amuasi, I'm coming to you now. You wanted to say something?
No, thanks very much for the opportunity. I really appreciate all that Dr. Okoe has said. It's really important for us to be able to of course, put forward the science, which is regarding the fact that there is no clear evidence or scientifically proven evidence that the vaccine is not effective against certain strains or the newest strains. But just like we said, and I made it very clear at the time 2 weeks ago, that there is no evidence that the new strain is in the country, except for the fact that we detected it in some, it was detected in some of the people entering into the country. But I also added a caveat that once we detected it in some people entering into the country, there's every reason to believe that it is already in the country. It's the same with this issue of resistance. I think the evidence is so clear, even though it has not been, it's not unequivocal, that this virus has the capacity to mutate and also have the capacity to sidestep the vaccine. In fact, just yesterday, there was the first almost categorical announcement that the vaccine is less efficacious against the UK strain, all right? So all I'm saying is that we need to prepare for what we know will surely happen. Viruses and all microorganisms always mutate. There'll always be that effort to have a goodness of fit. This is well known. So the fact that we don't have evidence does not mean that you cannot predict that it will happen. This is why we have predictive abilities, and we predict so that you can prepare and to act. So it's good to bear this in mind. The second thing is with regard to the efforts that Ghana is making to secure the vaccines. Again, I'm fully aware and well apprised on the efforts that the country is making. I can tell you that we are definitely way ahead of the curve in our preparations. I like the preambles that you read out, which clearly show that this is not a child's play. It's a very complicated, delicate dance. And this is why I used the expression in my earlier submissions that we need to be aggressive as a country, put money on the table, continue with our negotiations at the COVAX level, as well as multilateral and bilateral direct negotiations with the companies and even with the research industry that is looking at the newer types of vaccines so that we have one hand in the pie early enough. Here in Ghana, I know that we are looking at dossier evaluation, we are looking at the product registration, the importation, looking at the safety. And it will interest you to know that it's actually Ghana that chairs the mechanism in Africa for regulating or for making recommendations regarding regulations of vaccines and drugs. It's chaired by our own FDA director. And very interestingly, even at the WHO Africa level, the one who is in charge of this activity happens to be a professor from Ghana, all right? And we have people like Dr. Samoa Addo at the COVID Secretariat, Dr. Nsiasari, and a bunch of others who are well experienced and involved at very high levels in our negotiations. And we are very far advanced relative to other countries. So it's important that Ghanaians are aware that this is not just a question of Ghana has been allocated X number of vaccines and it's going to come. You were spot on when you said that it's not just about talking or expressing interest, but there's a lot of activity. And I'm glad to say, from what I know, from what I've observed, I know that we are making all the right moves. I can predict, of course, that Ghana is likely to be among the first countries in Africa to secure vaccines. And we are likely to be ahead of the curve if we continue in this way. What we need to do is to press on, be even more aggressive, and especially look beyond COVAX, because COVAX locks you in a certain way. So we look at the direct procurement from the government of Ghana, we look at the COVAX, we look at the corporate sector and look at the crowd funding options, we look at private foundations who are willing to finance and support us with negotiations. We must engage in all these. And I know we started doing this in this country. So from a personal perspective, I would say I am happy with the effort we are putting in to make sure that we get the vaccines in. If we continue this way, we should be ahead of the curve across the continent.
Thank you, Dr. Amuasi. Dr. Abekah-Nkrumah. Dr. Abekah-Nkrumah, are you there?
Yeah, thank you very much, Akoto. I have looked at the vaccines situation, and normally I would like to segregate the discussions into the different steps and then look at what Ghana is doing. So basically, the first part is actually supply, which is based on the different manufacturers. Of course, AstraZeneca is available to us through COVAX, which it's overall 20%, but hopefully by end of March, they will deliver 3%. And then by end of the year, they hope to have reached 20% of our population. What I know in the context of, even though Dr. Okoe said that they've not made the information public, and I think that that is what they probably need to do so that a lot of people will have the confidence that the government is working. What I know, it seems to me that government is really, really working, and I'm surprisingly impressed because I didn't expect them to work that hard. So maybe that's what they need to make available so that people would be at peace and know that people like Dr. Okoe and all his colleagues are working very hard. I know very well that apart from AstraZeneca, they are beginning to look at the Sputnik. They are looking at Sinopharm, and they are looking at Sinovac. I also know that they are beginning to think about the Johnson & Johnson, which I believe that within this week, they may have the emergency use authorization from the Food and Drugs Board. And even they are thinking about Pfizer and Moderna, notwithstanding the fact that we have cold chain issues. But the good thing about Ghana is that because of our EPI system that we've done over a long period of time, we will still be able to handle vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna, albeit that we need probably to do a little bit of investment to expand our cold chain. But if it comes to handling that, we have a bit of experience from our EPI system. So that is about the supply. Now, the next major angle you look at is financing. How do you finance? Of course, we know that within the COVAX system, that is going to be free for us, but that is just 20% of our requirement. Now, we also know that for us to be able to get to somewhere close to herd immunity, we need to do something close to 70% of the population to be able to get to herd immunity. But we also know that these vaccines, in terms of their clinical trials, they were done from 18 years and above and not below. So if you look at the immediate need for vaccination, you are looking at the population about 18 years and above. And in Ghana, the population below 18 is close to around 40%. So I would imagine that if we want to scientifically get close to herd immunity, we should be targeting about 60% of our population. Oh. And if we are getting 20% from COVAX, it means that we are left with what? 40%. And so we need to begin to think about financing for 40% of the population. We know that already the African Union has put in place a mechanism to secure about 670 million doses, with the African Exim Bank ready to cough out around $2 billion as procurement guarantee for countries that are willing to put money down. I have heard that already the Minister of Finance is already engaging with the Minister of Health to begin to look at how, and I'm sure Dr. Okoe may confirm this, okay, how to put the money down, some amount of money down for this. And I believe that maybe we may see the trueness of this from our budget. And so that is there. I also know that there are some private sector organizations that have already contacted government, and they are thinking of bringing around 5 million doses to vaccinate their employees and their dependents. And I hear these people are willing to add some additional vaccines for the population. So when it comes to the financing, that is the part of it. I am not too sure whether we have the money to be able to finance that 40%, but I already know that discussions are already ongoing. Now, the next thing is that when you receive the vaccine, what is your supply chain capability to be able to actually identify the I would not call it the priority, but I'll call it the segment that is in great need. I know from the plan that has been prepared that, in fact, they've gone into details in terms of looking at which segments they may start first, and even which geographical areas they may begin first. For instance, I know that they are beginning to think about health workers. They are looking at the security agencies. They are looking at employees that are rendering what you would call essential services. And there are even discussions in terms of which geographical areas they may have to begin. And like I'll say, Dr. Okoe may confirm this. And that's why I keep on saying that it is important for this to be public so that people will begin to know that some work is actually going on. Now, in terms of deploying the vaccines, my hope is, because Ghana has had an excellent record. Maybe I won't use the word excellent. They've had a very good record with the EPI system. So I believe that we can model the EPI system with some technology and improvement in data, as Dr. Amuasi was saying. From now to the time that the vaccines arrive, we can work to improve data based on the existing EPI system, introduce technology to be able to communicate to people, for people to know that you are going to be vaccinated at this point in time. In fact, I expect that around this time, the people, that is the people within the targeted population, should be receiving information that, look, there is the potential that on this date you will be vaccinated, and begin to even test the pulse of that targeted segment as to their willingness to even accept the vaccine. So these are, I would say, areas that they may have to focus on and work to perfect the sort of things that they have already started doing. I also think that we may need to invest in our cold chain, because look, for now, most of our effort is actually on Oxford AstraZeneca. But we know that the efficacy level of Oxford AstraZeneca is not as much as Pfizer and Moderna.
Yeah.
Okay, so what it means is that we need to be able to sort of improve on our cold chain. Now, the other incentive for doing that is that going forward, and I think that Dr. Amuasi is the one who is the expert in that. I'm an economist, so I don't have expertise in that. But I believe that going forward, a lot more manufacturers are going to be deploying the Moderna Pfizer technology more than the other technologies. And so it is important, because we have realized that the speed at which that technology is able to churn out results is better than the others. So there is
the likelihood.
I predict, yes, there is the likelihood that a lot more manufacturers are going to use that technology. And so we have an incentive, not to say that because the Sputnik gives us a temperature range, and then AstraZeneca and even the Sinopharm and Sinovac give us a temperature range that is good, or Johnson is just one shot, we may need to invest in that area to build the capacity going forward. Because it seems to me that COVID is not going to be a kill it thing. It is going to be with us for a long time, and so we might need to invest in those areas as well.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Abekah-Nkrumah. I hope our listeners have been educated significantly on the vaccines, because that is the next leg of this fight against the coronavirus. And so I'll be ending the conversation on this one and then come in studio. I take final words from Suhuyini and Mr. Abban, and then we can go to the Supreme Court. But I have a final question for you, Dr. Koboy, quickly. You know, we've been looking at local technology, so I was happy when I heard of the potential to test Nibima and what it can do, which was announced by the FDA this week. But I want to ask you, what happened to INCAS, the rapid deployment test that was supposed to get an expedited approval by the FDA, homebred solution? It was just another announcement? What happened?
Yeah, Godfred, you know, the INCAS technology was more or less an antibody test. It was not an antigen test. It wasn't a test that was meant to identify the virus. And if you look at our strategy for managing this pandemic, at the heart of it has to do with tests that identify the virus, so that you'll be able to quickly trace, test, and treat. That's not to say antibody testing hasn't got a place in dealing with a pandemic. It helps you to have an idea of exposure so that you can tell the difference between those who are in reality exposed from those that you've actually identified through testing. You know, so I think maybe that's it. But because you've asked, as usual, you always give me homework when I come on your show.
Yeah, so go and do this one. Go and do it for me.
Yes, I'll try it for me.
Yes.
Exactly. Well, and then finally, let me say that one thing from Dr. Abekah-Nkrumah as well as Dr. Amuasi is that I would aggressively engage our team so that some of these details can be published. I think we need the okay from the top. I'm sure even up to, you know, because
share the information. Share the information. Government, everything is national security. Share the information.
Absolutely. So I mean, I think on the back of this, you know, some of us, because we also want information to go out there, but sometimes there's a fine balance between how do you call it, validating and giving the okay, and then let it go out there. So we'll try and work on that ASAP.
All right then. Thank you very much, Dr. Bernardo Koboy. Thank you very much, Dr. Godfred Abekah-Nkrumah. Thank you very much, Dr. John Amuasi, for joining us on that segment of the show, the COVID conversation. So let me come in studio now. We're going to break very quickly, but Mr. Abban.
Yes, sir.
Just quick thoughts on everything that you've heard. Vaccine is coming, but it is not as simple as vaccine is coming.
Yes. Greetings to you and our viewers. This is the first time I'm actually speaking on this. The experts have spoken. We have listened. But this is a mixture of science and sociology, if I should put it that way. Because as we do the science, if we also don't do the social things well, in terms of getting the data and then the distribution and all that, we can bring it here and still have it completely wasted. Or we can just have just a little of it for a small segment of population. The rest may still not be covered. And then once we are not able to reach herd immunity, look, the little that have been vaccinated will make no meaning. So as I've listened to the parties and the experts, we need to have our data right. We need to have better education, because from what Dr. Okoboy said, if we bring it here and people are not willing and ready to receive it, what have we achieved? So it's a whole mixture of many things that we have to do. And government is doing its best, but I think we have to step up the education bit. Very, very critical.
Okay.
And also make sure that we conscientize our people to accept that nobody has the intention of maybe
rendering somebody infertile.
Exactly.
The vaccine.
Yes. So once all these education bits are done and people make themselves ready to receive the vaccine, then we are good to go. So it also has to do with the preparation that we have to do to make sure that the vaccines, when they come, they still maintain in terms of their temperature and the efficacy and all that. Because if, for instance, the Pfizer one, you are not able to keep it as cold as it has to be, you completely destroy it.
They're not even giving it to you because they'll come and inspect. If you don't have it, you won't get it.
So, but I think
you can afford it, but they won't even sell it to you.
Yes, I think that government is doing well, with more room for improvement.
Yes, I think that there's a need for us to commend our Ghanaian professionals. I mean, this COVID has given me another indication why perhaps Ghanaian professionals excel in different, circumstances and conditions, either than when they are working in Ghana. I mean, I think that our researchers, our doctors, our pharmacists, the professionals,
they are so good.
The lecturers, even, they have really stepped up to understand this and to help us understand it. So there's a need for us to commend them. And if you listen to our experts this morning, you can get their view that they have indeed soaked themselves in this whole enterprise. But you see, there's a local saying in my language that to get good sound from the dondo, the drum, you need to squeeze it.
Oh, okay.
You squeeze and let go, and that is how you get the kind of sound that you have. So apart from commending our professionals and researchers, I would want to urge them not to feel uncomfortable squeezing the dondo. In this case, our state officials and government. Because, I mean, clearly, as professionals, they have given their all. They have dived into this deeply and are coming out with what is required for us to do better as a nation. So they need to also once in a while squeeze the dondo. But if we go on that rhetoric of we are doing better, it is the reason we are having this second wave that is proving deadly. We give ourselves that sense of assurance that all is well, only for us to be surprised by, the reality on the ground. I mean, we are doing better. Ghana is still the second highest in West Africa and Central Africa. So compared to who are we doing better? In fact, we are 10th highest in Africa, the whole of Africa. Africa's fertility rate is supposed to be around 2.5%. Are we doing any better? So what is this talk of we are doing better? Well, because
a lot of countries don't even calculate the data.
So that's something. But you see, what is the essence of even that data? Is it not for us to even do much more than we are doing now?
But I think
so I'm saying that, and you see, with this data, with the data that we are talking about, that's why I started by commending the professionals. I think it is out of their own professional, work in some cases, and in most cases, that we have this available data. I mean, research is what is bringing out this data. It's not as if, there's some, like you just referred to the Ghana Health Service website. It's 4 days old.
Yes.
Do you understand? So if you are going to rely on that, the data that comes out from there, you will not be going anywhere. So I'm saying that, look, let us not be shy of asking that our nation does, more for us as professionals to be able to achieve the goal that we have set out to achieve when we individually and collectively as institutions or groups go into the study of COVID and how we are handling it as a country. Look, I've heard about the COVAX,
initiative.
Yes, initiative, and there's also one, the Serum Institute.
The Serum Institute is actually it's a factory. It's not a school or something.
Yes.
It's a factory.
Yes, and all those ones. So I'm asking myself how, as a country, our governments and institutions are positioning themselves for us to take advantage of all these initiatives to make the vaccines available. Now, the president talks about, getting 17 million, by end of year. And what are the processes that will ensure that? How many are we getting, as the initial? And you hear the figure, which vaccine? Because, for example, we know of the Pfizer one.
Yeah, it's the AstraZeneca we have applied for.
Good. So how many people are going to be vaccinated? Is it the double shots? Is it the one shot? You're asking yourself, what are the systems? And again, you raise a fundamental issue of Nigeria, where they don't even have the storage facilities. Do we have the storage facilities here? I mean, how many are they? How will they be transported? Because you see, even if we have one that can store it at a location, they will have to be transported in some cases to other parts of the country. What facilities exist for that to also be done? And that is where the dundum must be squeezed.
Yes.
So that we know that as a state we are really ready for some of these initiatives that will help us fight this
all right,
virus.
Thank you very much. And just to talk about him squeezing before I wrap up and go on a quick break before we enter the court, him squeezing the dundum. I read that sometimes a lot of the insults held at the professionals. And Mr. Abban, it comes from you and Mr. Suhuyini's friends, the political parties. the scientists talk and the political parties insult them. Hey, why are you doing this? You're making us look bad. Hey, why are you doing this? Let them breathe. Okay, so the professionals should not be afraid. Put out the information, challenge the data, ask the questions, and let us all improve the systems and save ourselves from COVID. We'll be right back.
Good note.
Lawful wedded wife to having to hold from this day forward?
I do.
Esther!
I knew it.
How much drama can you enjoy? See it feely with HD Plus. Get the best companion for your HD TV with HD Plus. Dial *879# to activate and enjoy the first 2 months for free.
Hey, Papa, no. Hey, where's your friend Ato?
I was at the bar with my friend Ato. We are betting the game and tensions were high. And Ato said, Charlie, we go lose. So then I said, same day. I won 15,000. Then Ato said, wait, we bet the same amount. How come I only got 9,000? Now I asked, yo, you didn't bet to Bet Planet?
Wait. He didn't bet to Bet Planet?
I didn't bet to Bet Planet. Then the bartender said, Ato, you suck, oh. Sharp, I go take all my money. Then Ato said, all your money? That was quick, oh. He's betting people say, come for yours tomorrow. We went the next day and they said, come for the rest tomorrow.
For the best odds, biggest wins, and fastest payouts, choose Bet Planet.
So Ato, where you dey?
I still take you inside.
This advert has been vetted and approved by the Gaming Commission of Ghana. Bet responsibly, not for persons below the age of 18.
Everything seems to get a little more expensive this time of the year, but keeping your family entertained doesn't have to. Now you can get a GoTV decoder with 1 month of GoTV Plus for the new low price of 89 CDs. That's 24/7 access to your favorite local stars, the biggest names in the game, international movies, and plenty to keep the kids busy. It's a deal you can't afford to miss, so don't delay. Get the limited time offer today. GoTV. Love it.
Welcome back to The Big Issue on Citi TV and on 97.3 Citi FM. It's been a big week in court, and we'll be discussing that, but you can also share your thoughts. 055 058 5832 055 58 5832. And some of you have been sharing your thoughts. Let me just take an interesting one that has come through. This came from Tarzan, who is saying that beyond the 2.4 million World Health Organization freebies, what specific steps have we taken to obtain the balance of vaccines needed to cover every Ghanaian living everywhere? So that is the question Tarzan is asking. Good morning, Godfred. I don't think we are prepared as a country to fight this COVID-19 spread. Come to Tema Community 11. A church opposite the Millicat shop, dozens of people gathered here for a funeral. And the interesting thing is that I can see police personnel guarding the funeral. Are we really serious in this country? Seriously? What happened to the president's directives about the 25 number private burial service? Kwame from Tema. Ghana Police Service, if you are watching and listening, and the authorities, Tema Community 11, a church opposite Millicat. There's a funeral going on there, and the police are there providing security, according to this listener, Kwame. So you can go and check it out and see what is happening there. Mokaila Jones Adia, Inside Kerry, says the effects of COVID-19 has gradually become scary, but I think the solution is to take our destiny into our own hands by adhering to the protocols, because even if the president advocates for paying heed to the protocols and become negligent, how do we get rid of the pandemic? Let's value life. For food, they sweet. I agree with you. The saddest aspect is that when you die of COVID-19, your burial becomes terrible, even than the burial of a dead animal. Be wise, so Tom. This is Frimpong from Dansoman, who says the handling of COVID has been poor. Our elected representatives in Parliament are refusing to adhere to the required protocols, which is also worrisome. COVID is real and must be given the right attention. Betty from California says, good morning. I think something must definitely be done about the younger children going to school. At least the very little ones below the age of 6 can be given a break between just 2 and 4 weeks during this critical time, is what she is saying. And a couple more, and then we can move on. I admire Dr. Boye for his frankness and neutrality in most of the issues he deals in. This is Ezekiel. Ezekiel, I cannot help you with your request. I'm sorry about that one. Okay, so 055-058-5832. You can also be heard. Let's go to the courts now, and I'll be doing this segment with 2 lawyers and a member of parliament. So Alexa Abban, private legal practitioner, and Nii Kpakpo Samoa Addo, another private legal practitioner, and Suhuyini will stay. So prior to yesterday we were in court. In fact, the whole week we've been in court, and it's been, I would say, interesting how a lot of people are following this court hearing. Almost every media house, every major media house is following this live, providing live coverage, providing some sort of commentary on it for the 4 or 5 hours daily that the court sits, looking at where we will end up. And at yesterday's sitting, the Supreme Court ordered for the removal of 5 paragraphs from the witness statement of Mr. Rojo Metonunu, one of the agents who represented John Mahama at the Electoral Commission's National Coalition Center during the 2020 polls. Now, the justices gave the ruling following an objection raised by Mr. Akoto. Now, he had wanted 23 paragraphs out of 32 expunged because they were not based on the pleadings of the petitioner. Mr. Chachuti Kata, the lead counsel, objected to, he opposed to the objections raised. So I'll play back a bit of the proceedings that day, and then we can also listen to Dr. Michael Kwesa-White, who was Mr. Mohammed's second witness, and he was also cross-examined by Justice Amenuvo, the lawyer for the Justin Amenuvo. Oh, okay. Justin Amenuvo. Thank you very much. Justin Amenuvo, counsel for the EC. So that was also very, very interesting. So we will go through these two, and then when we come back, we'll begin the conversation.
Now, After more than 5 hours of proceedings in court and the presentation of the third witness from the petitioner's side, as well as the postponement of his cross-examination, well, judges of the Supreme Court have decided that arguments that were brought up against the witness statement presented by the third witness of Mahama, out of the 23 or so of them that the second respondent counsel was seeking to have struck out, 5 of those paragraphs in the 32 paragraph witness statement were struck out by the justices of the Supreme Court. Now, for some of the stakeholders in this particular case, that is the petitioners as well as the respondents, well, it bodes well for their case in court. Let's now join my colleague Sixtus Dongulo, who brings us a detailed report of everything that transpired at the Supreme Court today.
The longest day yet in the ongoing election petition hearing, Friday's proceedings saw former President Mahama's third witness statement subjected to a barrage of objections.
You can swear to a 2-paragraph witness statement and say that you are swearing to the truth of the first 16. It shows that there's a real problem. This is a trial. Normally, even when somebody is giving evidence from abroad, you have an officer present whilst he's giving evidence. I think this is a very fundamental issue I'm raising.
Mr. Kotanko, why didn't you come with the other counsel into chambers to tell us this morning?
My lords, because we were told that this matter will be discussed, the case is now to be in public. That is why. Otherwise, I would have done that.
Consequently, President of the Court, Chief Justice Senin Yeboah, dispatched judicial officers to the undisclosed location of the witness.
It should take perhaps not more than 25 minutes to have a judicial officer present at the location.
Please, you are adjourned for 30 minutes and consider this. No, you will send somebody. Yes. Okay. Yes, we will arrange with you through the registrar. Yeah, okay.
But lead counsel for President Akufo-Addo, Akoto, was not done. He invited the court to strike out 23 of the 32 paragraphs of the witness, arguing that the said paragraphs were material facts of the case which had not been pleaded in the originating processes.
Yes, my lords, we will pray to have certain paragraphs in the witness statement struck out on the grounds that they are not supported by the pleadings. Also, on the further ground, my lords, all the paragraphs of the witness statement that we are taking objection to, in our view, relate to material facts, and there ought to have been a pleading of those facts in the petition. Then it will give the opportunity for them to elaborate those facts in their witness statement.
For lead counsel for the Electoral Commission, Justin Amenuvo, the objections raised had merit to them.
My lords, the object of pleadings is to compel the parties to define the issues upon which the case is to be contested and to prevent one party taking the other by surprise by leading evidence of material facts of which the other had no due warning. The penalty for failing to plead a material fact is the expulsion exclusion upon objection being taken of evidence to establish it, where evidence which could have been ruled out as inadmissible because it is adduced to prove a material fact which was not pleaded, has nevertheless been adduced.
So there were excerpts of proceedings from the Supreme Court this week, but just to also break it down a bit. So what happened was we had, first of all, the Chief Justice, Abban, in the course of the week, cautioning Frank Davis, one of the lawyers representing Abekah-Nkrumah Addo, against granting media interviews at the end of sittings. He said the court was uncomfortable with Mr. Davis's interviews because it was unethical and went against the legal professional conduct and ethical rules of 2020. And according to the rule, a lawyer who is practicing or has participated in the investigation or litigation of a matter that is still pending before a court shall not make an out-of-court statement or grant an interview to the media on the matter. Then on Tuesday, the petitioner John Mahama, through his lawyers, filed an application to inspect EC documents. There was a very long debate about that. Now, the documents they had wished to inspect included the original constituency presidential election result collation forms for all constituencies, constituency presidential election results summary sheet, regional presidential election summary sheets for all regions, and the declaration of the presidential results form. Now, that was denied. Then we also had Dr. Michael Kpesa, who was Mr. Mohammed's second witness. He mounted the box on that day and was taken through the cross-examination. Now, it ended with Mr. Kpesa insisting that the EC chairperson, Jean Mensah, instructed him and Mr. Rojo Metonunu to leave the EC strong room to confer with the petitioner, Mr. Mahama, on some issues of irregularity. Now, he said the instruction was a trick to ensure that the two were out of the room so the election results could be declared. Mr. White also conceded he did not speak directly with Jean Mensah. And then on Wednesday, the court dismissed the application to inspect the EC documents. The court didn't sit on Thursday. On Friday, we saw the court administering an oath to Mr. Rojo Metonunu, who joined via video conferencing. And that was when Mr. Akoto objected to 23 paragraphs out of 32 of Mr. Metonunu's statement. And at the end of it all, the court struck out 5 of the paragraphs. So that was paragraphs 4, 5, 6, 7, and 18. And the court will convene again or sit from Monday, February 8th. So that is what happened in court. And to help with this particular segment, we will have Kingsley Amuasi. He's a private legal practitioner. He's joining Nii Kpakpo Samoa Addo, Alexander Abban, and the Honorable Alhassan Sayibu Suhuyini. So, Mr. Abban.
Yes, sir.
What happened in court this week? For a lot of people, people were just watching Dr. Kpesa, watching Rojo Metonunu via video conferencing. But for a lot of people, I guess the main points would be the
long-winding arguments
made by Mr. Akoto in his cross-examination, and then also even in trying to ask for certain parts of witness statements to be expunged, and the defense from Mr. Chachuchikata. What was happening this week?
Thank you very much. This takes us to some kind of civil procedure. In the practice of the law and in the adduction of evidence, there are rules regarding these ones as we go along. For the education of our listeners and viewers, a case is started normally by issuing a writ. And that writ comes along with what we may call a statement of claim, or in the case of the election, what we will call the petition. So petition, statement of claim, or for instance, even if it is some marital issue, that's also a petition. And then the response that is given to it These things are what we call the pleadings. And the pleadings are supposed to be the material facts upon which your claim is based. And in the case of the defendant or the respondent, as the case may be, also the material fact upon which his defense is based. So that's what we call the pleadings.
Okay.
And the purpose is to give direction to all the parties, including the courts, to know exactly what is an issue. By this, I mean the area of divergence between the two parties, what the two parties are actually fighting over, what is in controversy. It is to help the court to narrow down the questions to be answered by the court, because it is that which would make the court know that these are the areas of divergence. So when I say something in my pleadings, and in your response, you admit to certain facts, and you do not admit to certain facts, it is those that you do not admit, and which I insist, which will be put before the court to determine. So usually it's on facts.
Okay.
To a very small extent, sometimes it may even be an admixture of fact and law. So these are the things. Then from there, you would go to what we may call the evidence. So the evidence is the various pieces of facts which would go to establish the primary fact that you have laid down in your pleadings. So we say that you plead facts and not evidence. And that is why somebody or a party may object to certain facts being introduced which is not based on the pleadings. Because in court, we do not go there to spring surprises on anybody. You put your cards down. Facts are sacred. So you put your facts down, the other person also puts all the facts down, and then on the basis of that, we would know which areas are the areas in controversy for the court to determine. And so there are strict rules. And if I may be guided by the CI 47, because they are leading evidence there, that is what will be operating. If we go to CI 47, I think, or the 11, is what deals with these things. Or the 11 will tell you that you must, you must just plead facts. Don't plead evidence. Okay, so facts, not evidence to be pleaded. I don't want to go into the various things because we will not have time for it.
Yeah.
But what lawyer Akoto did in court, inviting the court to strike out some statements made, has its foundation in the law. And here, with your respect, if I may just isolate them.
You're making me feel like a judge.
With all respect.
Yes. You see, it's striking out pleadings, or the 11 Rule 18. It says the court may at any stage of the proceedings order any pleading or anything in the pleadings to be struck out on the grounds that A, it discloses no reasonable cause of action or defense. And here, what it means then is that if you bring your statement of claim, or in this case, you bring your petition, and that petition, the factual matters you have stated if they are all even admitted as true, the contents are true, and you do not have any legal claim to be made on that, what we call the cause of action, if you don't have it, it can be struck out, and that ends the case, right? The second one is that if it is scandalous, frivolous, or vexatious, so those are normal words that we use, okay? You may come out with certain descriptive narrative of somebody which may tend to embarrass that person. It may tend to prejudice that person. Sometimes it may not even sit well with our own cultural sensibilities and all that. The court will look at it and say, no, this is scandalous. This one is vexatious. Let's just strike it out. Or it may prejudice, embarrass, or delay the fair trial of the action. Sometimes, in couching your pleadings, you may have stated something that is prejudicial. You are actually judging the case by your introduction of your opinion and not necessarily the facts. Facts are, this happened, I heard this. Simple. You leave the interpretation of that to the court. So if it is prejudicial, it is embarrassing, or it has the potential of delaying the fair trial of the case, the court can strike it out.
Okay.
Or if it is otherwise an abuse of the process of the court.
All right.
That one did not even apply, but even to some extent it did, because one of the arguments by Mr. Kutampa was that certain matters which had been ruled upon by the court were being reintroduced through the back door. But in others, the court will look at it, and then if the court is of the opinion that there is proper foundation laid for striking out these pleadings, it will do so. And so that's why certain portions were struck out. Okay. Because you see, when you want to say something in court, you don't go and spring surprises on anybody. And that's why you must lay the foundation by giving the material facts. And then in the evidence, you lead facts that go to prove the primary fact that you have stated. If in the evidence you state something which doesn't have any bearing at all on your initial case, what we call the pleadings, the court will strike it out.
Okay.
There are occasions where the court will look at those material facts that you are introducing to say that, looking at it, it has some kind of closeness to the case, but your pleadings did not show it. So we either give you leave to go and amend your pleadings to be in tune with your evidence, or we strike it out. So when it gets to that point, it's at the discretion of the court.
Okay, and that's what we saw with Lawyer Kutampa trying to do with Dr. Amuasi White, where he succeeded in getting a huge chunk
of the evidence struck out,
expunged, and then with Rojo 5. Now with Rojo's, there's just a few. So basically, he got the claims that the EC chair did not perform her duties as required by law prior to the declaration of the 2020 presidential results expunged.
That's prejudicial.
How is
just
that
give the facts. The law is in the bosom of the court. They will look at the facts and weigh it against the law to see whether the EC performed its duty.
Okay, and there's another one. Claims that some machines in the strong room failed to work at some point and that the fax transmission was slow. They were in the room. Why can't they say that?
This is a material fact which you should have stated in your pleadings.
Okay, so again, claims that Dr. Sayibu from time to time brought into the strong room documents he claimed to original collation seats without them knowing where he was getting them from.
This is also a material fact, because if we have a system that we must use, we must run with it. And you are now claiming that the system was not working, for which reason you have doubts over the results. This is a material fact that should find space in your pleadings so that somebody can also respond to it. Okay. So you don't come and sit at the in the dock or in the witness box and for the first time throw it out. It will not be accepted.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you for that clarification. Let me, I'll come back to you. Let me, Nii Kpakpo Samoa Addo.
Yes, my brother, how are you?
I am well. Good morning.
Good morning to your wonderful listeners. I kind of think I'm enjoying this Zoom experience today.
Yeah, well, it's your first Zoom experience with us.
First Zoom experience with Big Citi.
Big issue. Yeah.
I may be considering it. The drive, all the long drive.
No, you see, we bring you in also for your ambitious personality. But
anyway,
what did you make of the happenings this week? Your party had two witnesses that were considered key, Dr. Nii Kpakpo Samoa Addo and Rojo Metil Nunu, in the witness box this week. What did you make of their appearances and their statements, and what did their witnesses do for your case?
See, I keep telling, from last week, I kept emphasizing this point, that you must understand the case of the NDC and what it seeks to do in court by way of, not an NDC, but the petitioner. And then you would understand perhaps why the legal team is opting for certain things and not emphasizing others, as opposed to what the second respondent is also pushing out. The first point I made was that the case is between the petitioner and the Electoral Commission. Mm-hmm. As for President Akufo-Addo, simply by virtue of the fact that he is the beneficiary of the declaration, he has the opportunity to also protect an interest, basically. But the case of the NDC, as it is focused narrowly on the declaration of the results and the manner in which the Electoral Commissioner performed her duties prior to the declaration and the declaration itself, and whether, if she breached any constitutional provisions, it will make void the declaration. That is the essence of the case in court. And I re-emphasize the fact that it is the court will be making a determination as to whether or not there were constitutional breaches or infractions, which to some extent has been admitted by the EC itself, that the declaration had problems. But whether those problems were enough to invalidate the declaration is what is at stake. And I kept emphasizing the fact that not certain constitutional infractions may lead to the nullity of the consequential actions. But it is not all constitutional infractions that may necessarily lead to the nullification of an action by someone who has performed the constitutional duty. And so if you have those in mind, then you will be looking at what exactly is of what I would consider importance to the petitioner and his legal team and their case, and not be distracted by what it is that I can obviously see the second respondent, who is President Akufo-Addo's team, seeking to put out. In terms of the pleadings, and as has been explained by Mr.
Abban,
I felt that one of the complaints that the petitioner's legal team had was that the case management process, should have adequately taken care of all issues to do with objections to portions of the witness statement and all that. Those are things that we deal with at the case management level. So at the case management level, both parties will present their witness statements, what they intend to rely on by way of exhibits. You have objections, it is taken at that place. So when testimony starts, there should be little interruption. That is why we have case management conference. Now, I think it's quite untidy that you have a situation where when you're about to start cross-examination, then the other opposing counsel will get up, oppose certain paragraphs, and then the other counsel will now get up and have to respond for maybe 3-4 hours, and then the judges have to retire, make a decision or a ruling, and then come back. It's completely untidy, which was what case management conference was supposed to do with. You understand? So my learned friends will tell you that at the trial courts that we all, for any practitioner who practices or who is into serious litigation, it's clear that when we are dealing with case management, all objections and things are dealt with. So when you cross the case management phase, unless it is something exceptional, the trial would have proceeded very, very smoothly. Now you have a situation where the person has put in a witness statement. The court itself imposed the timelines for the start of trial and everything. And so when you start the trial, then the objections begin to flow. You understand? And so in one case, you had someone who is in hospital, you understand, seeking to have it to testify. We had to spend, it was a wasted day in my opinion, honestly. So that's my criticism of how we have been handling the case management aspects of this particular case. And I think that it is a bad example. It is really, really a bad example. However, as explained by my friend Abban, your pleadings necessarily, your witness statements must reflect your pleadings and the essential facts that you seek to bring out. And then, of course, you complement it with the evidence that you are going to adduce in support of those pleadings. So if your factual averments in the witness statements are not supported or grounded in the pleadings, definitely you have issues, because you should not be allowed to surprise the other side. And that it will be a very untidy process where you plead certain things, and then when you get into the box, then you go out there and then begin to say things that are not reflected. The point is this: it is better to err on the side of putting as much unnecessary things as you think should be in your petition. If the courts, in their wisdom, decide that some of it was not necessary, at least you err on the side of of caution. I cannot question the wisdom of the court in deciding what it considers to be relevant information or what it considered to be. But most of the pleadings that were struck out mainly on the ground that they were not grounded in the
pleadings.
In the pleadings, as opposed to because they are not relevant and the rest. And I think it's a learning curve for all of us, the lawyers, so that we take cognizance of what it is that we should always seek to put in there to enhance and make sure that our case is properly put out. But right. I think that
Nii Kpakpo, just hold for me. I'll take that as your opening salvo. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. No problem.
All right. Then I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Suhuyini, you are a member of parliament, but I'm sure you're watching this as a journalist.
Yeah.
What did you make of what happened this week?
I think that I like the way you have started. I am not a lawyer, but my journalistic background makes me very educated on content. So I am very quite careful in sharing my opinion on what happened in court, as you have asked. But I will start by looking at the whole structure of challenging the outcome of results and the new CI that governs it. Clearly, for me, what we have now gives me the impression that justice, the establishment of truth, and maybe the delivery of justice was not considered too much in putting up the CI.
How so?
Are you sure?
Yeah. I'll explain. I mean, I'm talking about the structure.
Yes.
Because focus seemed to have been on expedition, timeliness. And so maybe at one time, like Lawyer Chachuchi Chikata said, justice and the establishment of truth
being sacrificed out of expedition.
Yes, in the effort to have expeditious trials, maybe because of our previous experience of the trial lasting 8 months, we sacrifice the need to, at all costs, establish justice and truth. Establish truth that will lead to perhaps the service of justice for expedition.
But is the discovery of justice time bound? If you can get justice,
well, by this CI is time bound, and that's what a point I'm making. By the latest CI is time bound, and that's what I'm saying. I'm looking at the structure.
But my point is, it could not necessarily. It could not be. It could also not be a bad thing.
It couldn't be. I'm saying that I'm sure at the time when they looked at it, they looked at the benefits. For example, yes, for 8 months, we all saw the effects on the economy and governance when we had that trial going on. So that's why I'm saying that perhaps it was based on that history that there was a need for, the process to be abridged. But then I'm also looking at how that abridgment, is also creating the impression for me that timeliness is more important than the establishment of truth that will lead to service, justice being served. Again, I've listened to Nii Kpakpo, and I think he's spot on. The NDC has a specific case. And if you look at the pleadings and even listen to the lawyers and the arguments, you will notice that it is very specific with its demands of the Electoral Commission and what was expected of the returning officer. But then you have the third respondent, who really is not the focus of the petitioner.
Mm-hmm.
But
albeit the ultimate beneficiary.
But having an interest to protect the results of the actions of the returning officer. The actions of the returning officer has benefited the third respondent, and
the second respondent.
The second respondent. Sorry, and so you find that need to defend it. Now, the second respondent's response has created some confusion, I think, in the general public, because their responses seem to be general. It is not responding to the specific case that the petitioner is. You find responses such as, oh, but you said you won the election. Why is it now different? You say you have so the responses that are general in nature seek to confuse, in my view, the general public about the specific case of the petitioner against the presiding officer, which, in my view, has also led to some misunderstanding in the processes. Look, I, for example, have heard suggestions that parties are expected to be vigilant in the electoral process. Mm-hmm. And I agree, they are supposed to be. Parties must be vigilant. But you find the arguments being made as if to suggest that if parties, for whatever reason, fail to be vigilant, the electoral commissioner that has a duty to be credible and fair and transparent can be forgiven for being criminal.
For being negligent.
For being criminal.
Negligent.
For engaging.
Criminal is a serious word.
It's not so much of, he knows what he's talking about. It's not so much of being negligent. He's trying to say that it's a positive act, fraudulent act done by the electoral. Let him go on the way he wants.
I respond. It is a certain impression.
I respond.
It is a certain impression that if parties if parties in an election fail, for whatever reason, to be vigilant, then the returning officer or the Electoral Commission that has a duty. The parties don't have a duty to be vigilant to anybody. Remember, maybe just to their supporters. Yeah. But to the state and lovers of democracy, the parties really don't have any duty to be vigilant. But because perhaps they invest in it and their supporters invest, they are expected to be. But by the Constitution, the Electoral Commission has a duty to be fair, to be transparent, and to be credible. But people speak as if, for example, the NDC was not vigilant, and I'm not saying the NDC was not vigilant, then they have no basis, they have no right to question what is evidently, inappropriate conduct of the Electoral Commission. I think that will be dangerous for our democracy if we proceed with that kind of mindset. That anytime parties fail to be vigilant, then the returning officer of the day can get away with doing inappropriate things. So you find the argument of, okay, where are the NDC's figures? Like in the case of the original documents. You see, the ruling has been given already, so I'm sure we are permitted to look at some aspects of it.
You can even criticize this.
Yes. Look, the NDC, again, the specific issue is with the declarations and whether it is constitutional. And I say declarations because the EC did a number of declarations, changed the declarations. So we want to understand, for me personally, as a lover of democracy, I would want to know, I will expect the EC to show work, quote and unquote, show proof of how they use one source document to arrive at 7 different answers. Mm-hmm. So I would have been interested in the court making it possible for the EC to use its own original documents to demonstrate to the court how they arrived at different results. Because 1 + 1 is equal to 2. But if you tell me 1 + 1 is 0, 3, 4, 2, I may not be right to tell you are wrong. But I will be right to ask you to show me how you arrived at those different answers. And you see, at that point, Akoto, at that point, my answer should be immaterial to how you got 7 different answers. So if I know, and I have the evidence, and I've shown work, that 1 + 1 is 2, but you produce different answers, and I ask you to explain to me how you got different answers, my answer of 2 should be immaterial to how you got 7. So the NDC may have the duplicate. The NDC's duplicates may be giving it one result. But the EC's originals, by their own statements, have given them different results. And that is why it is important, in my view, that the courts should have given the EC the opportunity to explain to all of us, lovers of democracy, how one source document gave them the different results that they published. But that was not to be, and they...
No, but the EC has not even mounted a witness box. So how is that? How do you say that that's not supposed to be?
But the inspection of the original documents is what would have led to that.
That's not true. Anyway,
the inspection,
you have 2 minutes.
Yes, if they had provided the document, I may not need that much. If they had provided the document, it would have been the basis moving forward of establishing how they arrived at, those different results that were declared. So for me, generally speaking, I think that so far, I remain very hopeful, despite some misgivings, some of which I have shared here, that at the end of the day, justice will not only be done, but it would have been seen
manifestly to be done.
Manifestly to have been done. And that part of my expectation is grounded in the fact that this is telecast live, and the world is watching. People from all walks of life, like you yourself have said, are paying attention to this. Very serious media houses are broadcasting it live. And so, for our law lords, they should not only be concerned about justice being done, I think they must be concerned about it being seen to have evidently and manifestly been done. I think that is the best way to continue to strengthen our democracy. Because you see, there are many other forms of government, but all over the world, democracy so far seems to be the ideal. And we in Ghana have embraced it and seem to be progressing, very well with it. Let us not do anything that will, give critics of democracy worldwide an opportunity to begin to criticize.
Suhuyini, we have heard you.
Democracy.
The 2 minutes that you said in it. Can I respond to him?
You can respond quickly because I have to talk to lawyer Kingsley Amuakumbo as well. So you have 2 minutes.
Okay, quick response. Yeah. You see, if we allowed systems to work, and if we all had hopes in the various systems that we have set in place, this issue of vigilance of political parties would not even arise. Because we expect an impartial EC to work to the benefit of the country, regardless of who are the parties. So each party could have even slept. The EC, owning a duty, would have done its duty very well. But this kind of suspicion of the EC must stop, and it must stop now. You see, when you say that, because of the lack of vigilance, the EC is allowed to maybe do something criminal and all that, we are actually casting aspersions on the EC and eroding the confidence that people have in it. I think I also take issue with the question or the statement made by my very good friend Mr. White, that there's judicial patronage of political something. I listen to it.
That is not on the agenda. So. Yeah.
No, but you see, the statement of my friend here feeds into that kind of.
Don't assign improper motives to what I said. Everyone listen to what I said.
So let's
don't assign improper motives.
Your rebuttal is done.
No, it's not done. Now, the issue of walking away. The issue of walking away, which the NDC seems to set so much store in it, is so natural. Go to the various constituencies and ask how many losing candidates were present when the EC was, the EC representatives or the returning officers there were making the declarations. Usually when you see that things are going bad, you simply walk away. I did not go there to... it's very natural. And so, this natural thing that they did, they realized that no, things were not going well. And they left. Should not now be repackaged to be seen that the EC asked us to go.
You see, but now you are making assumptions on behalf of the two personalities. Anyway, the big issue will take a quick break. When we return, we hear from another lawyer, Kingsley Amuakumbo.
I have done.
Lawful wedded wife to having to hold from this day forward. I do.
Esther!
I knew it.
How much drama can you enjoy? See it feely with HD Plus. Get the best companion for your HD TV with HD Plus. Dial *879# to activate and enjoy the first 2 months for free.
Hey, Papa, no. Hey, why is your friend at all?
I was at the bar with my friend Ato. We are betting the game and tensions were high. And Ato said, Charlie, we could lose. So then I said, film day. I won 15,000. Then Ato said, wait, we bet the same amount. How come I only got 9,000? Now I asked, yo, you didn't bet to Bet Planet?
Wait. He didn't bet to Bet Planet?
I didn't bet to Bet Planet. Then the bartender said, Ato, you slack, oh, sharp. I go take all my money. Then Ato said, all your money? That was quick, oh. He's betting people say, come for yours tomorrow. We went the next day and they said, come for the rest tomorrow.
For the best odds, biggest wins, and fastest payouts, choose Bet Planet.
So, where you there?
I still take you inside.
This advert has been vetted and approved by the Gaming Commission of Ghana. Bet responsibly, not for persons below the age of 18.
I'm indomitable.
Who will emerge the best speller in Ghana? Which students will earn the bragging rights as the Spelling Bee Champion 2021? Come Saturday, February 6th, 2021, we will find out during the national finals of the Spelling Bee. Catch the excitement, the anticipation, spellbinding and nerve-wracking moments live on Citi TV at 1 p.m. 60 spellers from 7 cities competing for 1 cup, 1 title. Who will stand tall on Saturday, February the 6th? Join us at 1 p.m. via Citi TV on DSTV channel 363 and GoTV channel 182 on Saturday to find out more. The Spelling Bee is proudly brought to you by Indomine and supported by DSTV, U.S. Embassy Accra, Rufus Green Parks, Goyle, Ashasi University, Kenyan Airways, Frankie's, the 24 Osetutu the Second Charity Foundation, The Links Incorporated, and Citi FM and Citi TV. The Spelling Bee 2021 National Finals only on Citi TV.
Patient heart racing and the room is gazing. Please spell supercalifragilistic.
Welcome back to the big issue as we try to wrap up with the courts. Let's get on Zoom now again. Lawyer Kingsley Abekah-Nkrumah, who has also been watching proceedings. Lawyer, good morning.
Good morning to you. Good morning to your viewers.
Thank you for making time for us. Apologies for getting to you a bit late. But what have you made of this week's proceedings and the case in general?
Okay, thank you very much. So, to begin with, I would say that because this case is a political legal case, and all constitutional cases, or almost all constitutional cases, have a bearing on the politics of the nation, there is the attempt by the relevant parties in the matter and their parties, as in the individuals and their parties, political parties, to put the spin on it in explaining themselves. And I think we should be worried about such things. Besides that, I would say that the case of the petitioner is slightly different from the election petition, the 2013 election petition, in which case, in that, there were specific infractions of the CI that the petitioner sought to rely on. And to say that because those infractions happened, therefore the elections to be nullified, or one party even said that it should be declared to the petitioner. In this case, it is basically based on Article 23 of the Constitution, which says that the election petition, the first respondent, the Electoral Commission, has not acted fairly. All right. So they're saying they've not acted fairly. Then, in the pleadings, they are supposed to talk about which actions and which specific actions have been performed by electoral petitioner, which are not fair. And then in the witness statement, they adduce evidence to support those. And so that is where the difficulty of the first respondent, the petitioner lies, in the sense that they must adduce evidence to support the fact that the results as declared were wrong in its declaration, and it should be based on the fact that the data or the results as collated does not support the declaration. So then it is fair for people to assume that if that's the case, then bring your data or your results as collated to support the fact you are making that the results as declared were wrong, or the basis for declaring those results are wrong, which the petitioner is shying away from. And in shying away from that, it makes it difficult for the average person who's not a lawyer to appreciate that. And it makes it also difficult. That's why they keep on saying that the petition is not understood and people are not understanding the case they are trying to make. It is the fact that they are saying the results as declared was not declared properly. And the foundation for saying that is that the actual results or the actual valid votes cast does not amount to the figure as given by the first respondent to the second respondent. So I think that's where the difficulty lies. Beyond that, I agreed with Mr. Suhuyini's submissions from the beginning, and because he tried explaining that position. Where I disagree with him is to say that because the entire public is watching, therefore the judges must not be just cognizant of what happens in the courtroom, but outside. Because then that would mean that the public is being brought to bring pressure on the court, which is usually not the case. It is for the public to appreciate what is happening in the court, and where they do not understand it, they will seek explanation from their lawyers. You see, so when it is couched in the sense that because the public is watching, and so the judges must make sure that justice is seen to be done, then that leaves room to several interpretations. I've seen a lot of commentary by people who are even picking laws as words in their literal sense and making arguments on that. For instance, when we talk about relevancy, as legal practitioners, we know relevance has to do with the case itself and the way to be attached by something you're saying or the evidence you are using. But people are just taking words out of its context and giving it its literal meaning and then running commentaries on that. I think those are the things we must watch against. That would be my initial reaction.
Okay, Nii Kpakpo, let me come to you quickly.
If I could just,
yes,
agree with.
You have agreed. Let me.
Just so that it is clearer. I agree with his concern that he has expressed about, the possible pressure of people on the courts by, the statement that I made. But clearly, that was not my intention. My intention is rather to get the bench to conduct itself in such a way as it discharges its duties, so that we all, are convinced we see justice being done. That's all I'm saying. Your point is well made. I'm not saying that they must be pressurized by the public.
And so you bring a chain or a series of frivolous applications. And
so on the back of the two witnesses, and these are the two witnesses that your client that the petitioner is calling upon. Yes. Is the strength of your case the same based on what they did this week?
You see, there are two ways of putting your case across. You adduce evidence, yes, you adduce evidence, but you are also allowed to introduce evidence through the witness of the other person by way of cross-examination. So I lead my evidence in chief and all that. And I can also effectively put evidence into the proceedings through the cross-examination of the other side. Now, I keep telling you, the matters for me are very simple. I'll clarify this in just about a minute or two.
A minute is fine.
A minute or two. Just give me a minute or two. One, President Akufo Addo, as a party to this suit, is pushing a certain message, which is that whether there was any error by the EC or not, I crossed the 50+1 threshold. And so for me, the entire matter is moot in the sense that we are coming to court and talking about her constitutionality, the constitutionality of her actions or inactions, does not negate from the fact that the constitutional provision 63.3, if I'm not mistaken, that I've met the 50+1. If she erred in her declaration, it has done nothing to do with the fact that I've crossed the threshold and have been legitimately elected. And President Mohammed's point is that there is only one person who is permitted to make declarations on presidential elections. That declaration must be based on you having crossed 50+1. So if there's an error in respect of the declaration that has been made, and that error is so material that statistically none of the two leading contenders to the election would have crossed the 50+1 threshold, and therefore the court should invalidate the declaration instruments that the Electoral Commission has made and consequently declare the election instrument, which for all intents and purposes by 63.9 is the instrument that is prima facie evidence of a valid election. So if indeed upon cross-examination there is evidence is brought to bear and there's an admission by the Electoral Commissioner that the error she committed is of the magnitude that statistically the declaration she made could not have made any candidate cross the 50+1, then we are in for an interesting stretch. So that's why I keep saying that the entire case of the petitioner would be made out when the EC commissioner is cross-examined. Because honestly speaking, I didn't even think that technically the EC, if we were to take the matters as matters of fact, the petitioner did not even have put in a witness because at the end of the day, the facts are notorious. There was an election, a declaration was made. The issue of the petitioner is that per the declaration that was made, there were such manifest errors in the declaration that nobody crossed the 50+1 threshold. So we put in the Electoral Commissioner, put in the results that she declared, and then let's go on and ask her whether there were those inconsistencies which materially make it statistically impossible to meet the 63.3 requirement. If that is so, then it means that the declaration that she made, for all intents and purposes, the instrument that she made was invalid. Now, whether or not that takes away from the fact that if you put the collation of all the documents, all the police stations together, somebody crossed 50+1, is neither here nor there because no individual other than the commissioner is entitled to make a declaration as to who has won. So technically, if the court is to decide that she statistically made an error and that error invalidates the instrument that she issued, is the court going to say that I'm closing my eyes to the constitutional requirements of 63.3 and 63.9, which says that the instrument she declared or she used is the prima facie evidence, and only talk about where are you, why is it that you are not presenting your own results? The issue is very simple. No other institution or person has the mandate to declare presidential results. And so I'm looking forward to
to Monday. You are looking forward to Monday.
That is for me. That is at the heart of the case.
You don't want to prove your case. You want somebody else to.
What is my case?
What do you think the case of the petitioner is? That's where it's funny.
Your case is made. Lawyer Maku would also thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. I'll just wrap up quickly one sad piece of news. So, just been told that the ambulance driver who was shot has passed away. So, Abraham Tete, sad case, who was conveying a pregnant woman to a government hospital in the Kofrida government hospital in the eastern region. Got caught up in the middle of a highway robbery, passed away at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital this morning. And then this one, from your side of Parliament, allegation of corruption against a Supreme Court judge, retraction and apology. This is coming from Alhaji Mohammed Mubarak Muntaka, MP Amuasi and Minority Chief Whip, and quickly reads that I have reflected deeply and consulted broadly on the aftermath of the disclosure I made during an interview broadcast by Joy News TV on 10th January 2021. The disclosure was based on a report from a trusted colleague, which was that she had been approached by a judge of the Supreme Court seeking to entice her to vote for a particular candidate during the contest for Speakership of Parliament. Admittedly, because I did not specifically name any judge, this may have had the effect of scandalizing the judiciary in its entirety. This unintended consequence is deeply regretted. I therefore wish to respectfully retract, same, and apologize for the harm done to the image and reputation of my Lord Justices of the Supreme Court and the judiciary as a whole. Based upon good counsel, I have also decided to let sleeping dogs lie. I will consequently refrain from any further public commentary on the matter, which, as I have indicated, was originally reported to me by a female colleague parliamentarian. I implore the media and the general public to kindly respect the spirit in which I offer this retraction and apology. It is my fervent prayer that the existing historic cordial relations between the legislature and the judiciary will not be affected by this incident, but will continue to grow in the interest of the country. Signed, Alhaji Mohammed Mubarak Muntaka, MP Asawasi, and Minority Chief Whip. Thank you for staying with us on this episode of The Big Issue. My name is Godfred Akoto Boafo. Have a good weekend.